Welcome to hell. Devil's Advocate pits lawyer against lawyer in a battle royale to answer the age-old question, who's better at arguing? The rules of the game are, we spin the wheel of misfortune to decide on a topic. Once a topic has been selected, the advocates must answer a set of polarizing questions. When they disagree, the game begins. Each advocate must argue their side, but here's the devilish twist. They must argue for the side they did not select. Let the depravity commence.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Devil's Advocate. Today, we've got a very special episode. We've got Erik Heninger and Maurice Lilienthal with us. Sorry if I butchered your names, gentlemen, but it's going to be a good one.
Yep, let it begin.
Yep, let it begin. Yes, it's all you.
All right, let's spin. So we're starting off with game. The game is, you need to argue about what this made up or real word means. Each of you gives your own definition, then must argue why the other's definition is the right one. The word is Dravish.
Dravish sounds like a lawyer that is disheveled, unkempt, unknowing, and just generally not a well-looking fella.
Dragish just means you're not cool. It's kind of like you're lame, you're boring. It's kind of what the kids are saying. Man, he is damn draggish. I would not hang out with him for nothing.
All right, guys. So, Morris, now it's your job to argue why Dravish means it's a lawyer who's stuffy and all the things that Erik said. Erik, your job is to argue why Dravish is basically kids saying it's not cool. It's like all the rage for the kids these days. And begin.
Yeah, I think, Morris, you may have a good definition there. Dravish, it sounds like a word that my 13-year-old came up with at elementary school and is using in middle school. Dravish. I think it's perfect because, you know, the older folks don't have any idea what it means. We probably embrace Dravish, which would support the whole idea that we're not cool. At least that's the way it works in my house.
Well, Dravish really means, you know, it's kind of like a defense lawyer, just stuffy, always standing in front of a brick wall, or, you know, just kind of wanting to just needle noses you about everything. Can't do anything easy. Everything's a pain in the tail. You can't get anything free communication. They're always trying to hide everything. They're just Dravish. I mean, that's all there is to it. I just think of a big firm defense lawyer at one of these big firms, and they're defending Ford or, you know, some other big conglomerate or Tesla. You know, they're Dravish.
I think they made some good points. Let's move past the game. The game is usually the last thing that we do.
All right, so let's spin again. The question is, or the point is, sex work should be legal.
These are yes, no, by the way, for the record.
Yes, I want Mo to have to answer this question.
Well, yes, I think so too. I think if you can, just like anything else, we can regulate it. So why not legalize it?
All right.
So no game.
Next question. Okay. Should marijuana be legalized nationwide?
Yes.
No.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, make your arguments.
Since I'm going to argue for Mo's answer, no, it shouldn't be regulated because I think different states have different personalities. They have different citizens and they have different values. So why impart, you know, a national idea of drug use upon, you know, I don't want to do in Alabama what they're doing in California. I want to be different. I want to hold to my values, hold my Southern values, my Christian values. And marijuana use just eviscerates all of those things.
Why should a state line make a difference in whether something's legal or not legal? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, think about all the other crazy things that we're doing and we're regulating and we're taxing right now. And things, I can tell you, I've been a lot more intoxicated than seen a lot more people dangerous by intoxication than by marijuana. And so, you know, we just need to tax it, regulate it. Let's bring in the tax dollars. It's like the equivalent of having a lottery in Tennessee and everybody in Alabama going over to Tennessee to buy the lottery tickets. But we don't want to have it here. We're too good. We don't think we're out going to Colorado and these other places smoking dope, and then we just don't want to have it here. That's crazy.
Anything else from either side?
Mo, our religious nature is crazy, so we can't have people smoking dope. Let them go to Tennessee. Let them go to Colorado. They belong there. Don't come back.
No way. We're leaving too much on the table. We should be free flowing that. Think about all the cells. Don't we need a bunch of more stores in our strip malls for selling bud and weed now? So that's what we need.
All right. Yeah, it's fine. You move me over to Morris. Yeah, I'm getting pushed over. Andrew's still on the fence.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the fence here.
All right, let's move to the next category.
Society. So the first point of argument or contention is plastic straws should be banned from restaurants.
No.
Next
one is global warming is the single biggest threat facing society today.
No.
Okay. And next one is, should voting be compulsory?
Yes.
No.
Right. All right, and voting should not be compulsory. Too many citizens are not aware of the issues, of the impact and qualifications of candidates. So requiring people to vote on something they have no idea about is just dangerous. That's how you get officials that's how you get elected officials that shouldn't be in office, and then it's just travesty all the way down. We start looking Dravish.
Okay, great.
Well,
word.
I mean, clearly, we need to be voting and doing, and it's like everything else. We need to mandate that, because once you mandate it, people are going to get out there and they're going to be required to get informed and do. Are we just going to sit on the sidelines and not let folks understand what the importance is? That's kind of how we're in the position we're in now. And we let the few dictate for the whole. And so I think we need to make it important and start it from the ground up, from the flow up, and make sure that everybody understands why we need to be voting and doing. And if it's mandated and people are required to do, then I think we're in a better position to know what's going on. And you're not going to be Dravish, you're going to be cool and hip. And we're going to have bud in our state because everybody's going to get out and vote.
All right, you both made some excellent Dravish points. So, to the fence for both of you.
Next category. All right. So, is the death penalty an effective deterrent against serious crimes?
Yes.
No. It's not a deterrent to severe crimes. I mean, people don't even realize what the laws are. They regularly don't realize, what the severity, or what they increase the severity of their actions. What's that going to do? And I'm a lawyer, and I don't even know all the consequences to the laws that we have. Is it, if you walk around with a gun, it's more severe than you walk around with a knife. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think the death penalty costs too much. It's too cumbersome for our society to actually use. It just takes too long. So I don't think it's an effective cure for the severity of crimes in this country.
Well, I think it's like anything else. We've got to have the right penalties out there to restrict types of conduct and do. And I think what we have is kind of like Ron White might say in Texas. In Texas they have a fast lane for the death penalty. And maybe we need to fast track these things. We used to hear stories several years back where people would go to another country and they would be they chop their arm off or something crazy for stealing and doing. I don't think we are putting enough out there for people to understand. We're just putting people in jail and they're just sitting there the entire time, and we're not processing people through properly that are committing these kinds of crimes. Because if people really understood the impact and we were imposing the death penalty, not just issuing the sentences, but actually imposing it, I think it would have an impact. There's no doubt about it.
Morris, to your point about chopping the arm off, that sounds very like Code of Hammurabi-ish. Would you say that wouldn't that mean that we're going backwards? Like, what would you say to people saying that puts us like going backwards and not moving forwards?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not advocating that we should do that in our country, but when we hear about deterrence, we're talking about what can we do as a deterrent. And if I'm taking a pro-death penalty approach here, then I think we need to make sure that the penalty is not only out there, but it's one that is put into place. Because right now, how many people are put to death in Alabama, where Eric and I are in the country? Probably just a handful. So it's not really a deterrent just because it could happen. It's like telling my 14-year-old, I'm going to take your phone away. I'm not taking his damn phone away because it's more of a pain in the ass to me than it is for him to take his phone away because I can't keep up with him. I can't deal with what I got to deal with on a day in, day out basis. So, we got to understand that what the real threat is versus an actuality. And so it needs to be an actuality, not just a threat.
So if it's just for the purpose of being a deterrent, should we torture instead of just like a silent, like quick death? Should we torture people?
I don't know. I'd like to torture some defense lawyers, but yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't know about torture, but we're talking about, I think the punishment needs to meet the crime here. And so if it meets a certain threshold, then once someone's had their appeals process, then we need to effectuate that outcome as opposed to dragging it out. And that's what's going on right now. And so it's not a real effective punishment because it's not a real threat.
Okay, you won me over.
Yeah, you could move me over too, Yitz. Unless we get a strong rebuttal here.
I'm glad Morris mentioned Alabama, where we live, because we're a little bit more cognizant of things that we're having to deal with here. Here recently in Alabama, I think we probably put to death more people in the last 2 years than maybe any other state in the country. And yet here where I sit in Birmingham, severe crimes have gone through the roof. We've had the highest number of murders that we've ever had in Birmingham in the last 50 years. And we're utilizing death penalty more than we ever have been before. So the numbers don't add up. It doesn't make any sense. So that's just proof positive and clear evidence that's hard to argue with that it's just not effective.
It's percentages or anything we want to make them to be. If we put 4 people to death, is that may be twice as many if the other states have put 2 people to death. So I'm not sure that I've heard a lot of that, but I do agree there's a high crime rate in Birmingham. So I've been around a lot of places. So we need to effectuate means and put it in place to stop it.
All right, let's move to the next category. Let's get off death.
All right, something happier.
Hopefully not the game again.
PI.
Okay. Should be familiar territory.
All right, so should you take cases to trial that may settle early for a reasonable sum or for the sake of keeping the attorneys sharp and insurance companies honest?
I say go to trial.
No, you should settle.
Begin.
So you got to take that side, Eric. I think you flipped on me last time. I think you said the other way, and you still took the other position.
I did? Yeah. Well, hey, it's devil's advocate. I'm the devil. All right, so I got to argue that you would use to settle cases, and I can see some logic there because settling a case early is probably, well, in some cases would be better for the client because it gets over quickly. You put some money in their pocket, and they can move on with their life, start the next chapter. So I think there's an opportunity there that the lawyer that's handling the case from the plaintiff side should really take a hard look at settling the case early. Also, unfortunately, what we're seeing more and more in this state, I know in the South, probably in the country, is the quality of trial lawyers is decreasing, seems like on a yearly basis. So fewer and fewer opportunities for a plaintiff to really take advantage of a trial opportunity where they can maximize the value of their case. So it probably would be smart on a broad scale if you settle the case early.
What I can tell you is that 9 times out of 10, once you file suit, the litigation process is going to uncover some fact, some piece of evidence, something out there is going to develop that's going to maximize the value of that case that you never would have known about had you sat and just sent in a demand package and gotten a settlement offer in. I'm in depositions yesterday, and without going into the facts of the case, this was something that I never would have dreamed we would have found out that this international corporation is doing with regards to how they're handling something. And if we just sat on our tails, sent in a demand package and said, send us some money, and the client probably would have been okay with it. But now we're going to multiply his recovery many times over because we dug in, put our hand in the dirt, like I would say is playing football, and we went to battle with the other side and do. There's no question. 9 times out of 10, you got to do it. And Erik's point, sometimes there are times when you have facts that, or a client for whatever reason that dictates settling cases on the front end is better. But for the large part, always file suit, go after them, get all the facts, and then you can make the decision the best way to go forward.
And do you think that one side or the other leads to potential misuse of the system? Is there like settling early versus going to trial in the case where it could have settled early? Does one of those two things bog down the system unnecessarily?
I think it bogs down the system unnecessarily, absolutely. All you're doing when you file a case and take it to trial is line the pockets of the defense lawyer. But that's really all you're doing. You may be able to get more money for your client, but the time spent and the aggravation spent of dealing with that defense lawyer just seems to suck the life out of you, and in fact sucks all the money out of the case. So get what you can. You can be as good a trial lawyer as I am, and you make the other side afraid, so you don't have to file the lawsuit. So get the money up front, make the client happy, and move on to the next case.
Well, you can huff and puff and you can say we're the world's biggest injury law firm and you can have NIL deals with all these players, but you got to get in and you got to know your facts. It's all smoke and mirrors and doing. You look at a lot of the college football teams now are smoke and mirrors and doing, but when they get on the field, they can't cut the mustard and do. And if you continue to settle cases like that, you're running into the same insurance companies over and over again. They know they can undercut you and undersettle you. And you're not only screwing your clients, you're screwing yourself. And so it's to be about the clients and getting the best recovery possible. You need to dig in, put your foot up their ass, and go forward.
All right, I'm back on the fence. I'm very wishy-washy with my.
No, I'm on Team Morris for this one.
No, you didn't. You just didn't want to move.
Maybe so.
That was laziness. That was driven by laziness. Okay, let's. I think we got time for one more spin.
All right. Yeah, again. Should there be a cap on punitive damages in personal injury cases?
Holy cow. No.
I can't even make you argue the other side of that one, Erik. I'm sorry.
No argument.
All right. Should no-fault insurance systems be adopted nationwide?
No.
Should third-party litigation funding be allowed in personal injury cases?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
Oh, that was going to be that.
All right. Is the current system for medical malpractice claims effective in protecting patients' rights?
We'll say yes, just so Morris has to say no.
I'll say no. So that means I've got yes on that side. Yeah. So, with regards to medical malpractice cases, I think where the current system is effective, because what happens is people call our office all the time, and what they're complaining about is a lot of times it's the doctor's bedside manner, or it's the nurse's bedside manner, or it's just a complication. And it's an unfortunate complication, but it is a complication and a risk inherent in the procedure that they're having. So, every time that they're upset with something, you can't file a lawsuit. And so the current laws set it up such that you have to make sure that, at least in our jurisdiction, that the doctor has breached the standard of care, and you have to have a similarly situated expert on the other side to show that they breached that. And I think that is critical, because we need that protection for our doctors, or people are going to be scared to go into the profession and do. And people have to understand that a bad outcome is not necessarily malpractice. And every time they're upset because somebody's rude or short with them, doesn't mean they got a lawsuit. I mean, if we dealt with that in other professions, escalate that out. Think about teachers. Good gracious, if my wife teaches elementary school, if every time somebody moaned and complained to her about how she exercised or did something in her class, she'd be sued every week. It's just ridiculous. The system needs to be tight and strict, because there are not that many situations where a doctor is in breaching the standard of care. Are they out there? Yes. Should they be held accountable? Yes. But for the most part, and Erik will tell you that's why 9 times out of 10, when he evaluates a malpractice case, there's no malpractice. So the system is there, and it's there for a reason.
Oh, Morris, I'm glad you had to argue that side. You know, we do need our doctors, and last time I checked, medical schools here in this state, there's no glut of doctors. In fact, here in Birmingham, UAB Hospital and the health system is the largest employer in the whole damn city. So we got tons of doctors, we got tons of nurses. Now, here's the reality of the situation. Yeah, I do have to turn down 9 out of 10 cases that come to my office. That's because the law is so bad. It protects doctors. It gives them the advantage. They're the ones going in, and they are not paying any attention to the client or their patient. They're not listening to the nurses. You got everybody specializing from, I only work on toenails, or I only work on hair, and everything in between. Nobody knows what the other one's doing. And when they go in and they screw up, and they do screw up, and they screw up often, and it's always serious. It's not just a little complaint, Mo. They're not just saying, oh, I didn't get the flavor ice cream that I wanted after my tonsillectomy. It's the fact that I went in for a tonsillectomy and now I don't have an esophagus. And so the law there protects the doctor's screw up. Oh, and here's the bigger thing. You got a doctor that can't even determine what's a liver and what's a kidney, and the public doesn't know about it. So he's still operating here in one of our hospitals, screwing people up, and yet the law protects him. And it's to the disadvantage of the patient. So no, this law isn't working. It doesn't inform the public about how bad some of the medical care is. It's a tragedy. We got serious people that are really, really hurt and can't get compensation. And that just puts more of a burden on the taxpayers because they're getting Medicare and Medicaid now. And who's paying for that? You and me, Mo. And so it should be the responsibility of the doctor who caused the injury, not us.
Look, nobody's arguing that if you're taking out somebody's kidney and you're supposed to be removing their liver, that shouldn't be a case. We're talking about should we open up the floodgates of people every time they have a complaint about a poor outcome in a surgery to open up it, make it much easier to file a medical malpractice case. Let's see what happens when we do that. And let's see that the UAB health system and the number of doctors dwindle down and nobody wants to go into that profession. I'm telling you that the litigation will be enormous if we make it much easier to do. It's just ridiculous. If they're chopping off the wrong arm or the wrong knee, got it. But otherwise, we need the deterrent there, because 9 times out of 10, when people are fussing, it's just because somebody's bedside manner, they didn't get their hand held.
Yeah, you're right. If we do open the floodgates, people will be sued. Hopefully, we'll get out of the state and stop treating our citizens. Let them go to California or Texas and treat people. They don't need to be here.
Roll Tide.
All right, I'm back on the fence. A lot of good points. Okay, guys. That is it on our game for today. Thank you both for joining. I landed on the fence at the end. I guess Andrew's team Erik.
Well, for the final argument, yeah. I don't know what the total tally is.
Yeah, we have to go back and do a total tally type of thing. But overall, I think I'd be very happy if either of you guys were my lawyer if I ever needed it. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see everyone on the next episode of the Hot Docket. Oh, sorry, no, this is Devil's Advocate. I got to get out of that habit.
That wraps it up for our Devil's Advocate game. So it's time to pick our winner. Well, while Bobby was on the fence for most of the time, there was one defining vote that made congratulations to Erik our winner. But we would love to hear from you. Who do you think was the winner? Have any ghoulish guest ideas or hair-raising topics you think we should debate? Leave a comment and let us know. And thank you so much for watching Devil's Advocate.